Okay, so hi everybody. So I'm Emily Williams, and I am going to talk to you about one of the case studies that we have worked on as one of the people that we support. I thought I would give a brief introduction to the presentation. So I'm going to talk about a lady called Roxy and how we implemented positive behaviour support with her, share some of the challenges and learning so that if people are going forward with a PBS model, then some of the things that we've taken from our experience, and just giving you some really good outcomes, hopefully, to show you the impact that implementing PBS has had for Roxy. So as I said, so I'm Emily, so I work at an organisation called Saracen Care Services. Previously, I was in a commissioning capacity, so have a personal interest in people who exhibit behaviours which can be described as challenging, so from a family background as well. So this is a personal area of interest, so I've been lucky enough to be able to lead it within the organisation. So Saracen Care, so we're based in Gloucester and Swindon. We support around 80 individuals with a range of different needs. And the individual I'm going to talk to you about lives in Swindon and has been with us for a number of years. I suppose some of the key learning for me around implementation of positive behaviour support is around the context in which you're implementing it. So I've been very lucky to be in an organisation where there is the sort of framework around it. So for example, we're part of the Restraint Reduction Network, you know, have signed up to the STOMP pledge and various other things, as you can see on the screen. So I think for me, although PBS sort of sits in its own right, for me it's interlinked with all these other things which have also happened within the organisation. So as I said, so it's absolutely around culture and values. So my the picture there on the screen is our managing director and owner, Julia, and that's been really key. So if anybody is planning on implementing PBS, it's absolutely around having senior sign up. So having the resources, so for example, we have a quality function within the organisation, and resources around training, for example. So it's for me, it's been around implementing PBS within the organisation so that it's not sat in a silo or in isolation. So this is Roxy, who has given me permission to share her photograph with yourselves. So she's mid-20s and obviously is female, so she can verbally communicate. So she has been involved in every stage of her PBS plan and the work which has gone around that. So she lives in a supported living setting with 3 other people. She's previously lived in different settings. She likes going out and about. You'll see her there at the bus stop. Particularly likes going out on public transport for adventures, particularly for meals out, as most of us, not at the moment. So she's a very skilled baker, likes listening to music and seeing other people listen to music, and she'll have a little dance. Is great with technology, enjoys things like having her music player and iPad. And her diagnosis is she has a learning disability and epilepsy, and she did have a brain tumour as a child also. So I suppose helpful context that I undertook the PBS course with PBS UK. So the work that I'm about to talk about was developed through that as part of my portfolio. So we had to choose a case study, which was Roxy for me. And we decided to use her as an initial candidate because as part of our quality processes, we identified that her the level of her behaviours and the frequency of her behaviour had increased. So some of the behaviours that she can display when she's upset or anxious can include self-harm, so she'll scratch herself or bite herself. She might spit at others, become verbally aggressive towards people, and potentially flap her hands or punch the air, or she can bang her head on items or hit objects around her, such as tables, doors. So yes, so part of the process for developing Roxy's PBS plan was around creating an operational definition. So for us, this is something that we're looking at across the organisation. So rather than saying somebody has challenging behaviour or behaviour described that could be described as challenging, it's around what that actually looks like. So for example, talking about very specific things. So you know, does she self-harm? Does she spit? If she spits, does she do it at others? Or is it just in general proximity? And when she's verbally aggressive, you know, what does she say? If she's hitting somebody, does she do it with a closed fist, an open palm? Where is she likely to hit them? Those sort of things. So that was really key for us. So as part of the operational definition, we also looked at the frequency of behaviour. So there's a 3-month period cited there. So it was she was becoming unsettled 4 to 5 times a week, which was a significant increase for her from some previous work that we'd undertaken. So we'd absolutely seen an escalation and wanted to implement you know, a range of interventions to try and support her to feel happier and to live a happy life. So following the operational definition, one of the things that I was most excited about, and we've had discussions internally around implementing on a wider basis, is around PERMA. So I'd heard of quality of life before as part of previous work, and absolutely, you know, we were committed as an organisation to that. But PERMA gave us the framework, I suppose, to hang quality of life onto. So we looked at positive emotion, so opportunities for Roxy to experience positive emotion, what that looks like for her, to be engaged with people, have relationships, have meaning in life. So that was a key thing for Roxy, that she would, for example, and will continue to do so on occasion, talk a lot about birthdays, even though her birthday is not until June. And it's around giving her other meaning and also a sense of accomplishment. So we developed a PERMA profile, and that was developed through team meetings, direct observations by myself, review of support plans, and also talking to current and historic staff and people who've been involved in her life, as well as professionals. And we explored within the profile what PERMA looks like for Roxy and how it could be improved. One of the things that when we were going through the PERMA profile with staff, this question stuck out, and I've carried it with me since. So if you had £1 million and somebody asked you to either stop or start Roxy's behaviour, how could you do that? Could you do it? And for us, that was quite a clear example of, yes, we absolutely could identify key trigger points and antecedents for behaviour. So I won't talk through all of this, but these are just some of the examples of what PERMA, so quality of life, meant to or means to Roxy. And these are things that she also was involved in, so had conversations around what was important to her. So we made some staff changes, for example, introduced more males, a lot of work around structure and plans that she'd chosen, family engagement and goals and recognition. When for anybody who's implementing a PERMA plan or profile, these are just kind of key things, that learning points that I took away from it was that quality of life is very different to me as opposed to Roxy. So some of the things that I would class as beneficial to me weren't very important to her. And similarly, the number of areas overlap. So when we were creating the profile, it was okay that there were areas in positive emotion, which also gave her a sense of achievement or accomplishment. So some of the things that we implemented were around a dynamic list of tasks for the day, so structure. For Roxy, and you'll see an example there. So it was absolutely around using the tools that we had and being quite dynamic, so it doesn't have to be a complex system. We reviewed staff at the service, implemented a photographic rota, provided her with a key to the front door, and have done a large piece of work around skills teaching for finances, which I'll come on to in a moment. Alongside the PERMA profile, we also did some behavioural analysis work, so looked at the data of incidents and used a time intensity model. So you'll see from this, for example, that the first graph that Roxy's behaviour spiked very first thing in the morning. So we reviewed the staff provision and changed her support hours to bring them further forward into the day. Similarly, incidents by staff member, so you'll see that they're cross-referenced with the percentage of time that the staff member is there to make sure that it's an accurate reflection. And one of the things that we identified from this, so Jess is listed on there as having a high number of incidents or percentage ratio. But when we actually went and spoke to Jess, Jess was recording in a different way to the other people that were there. So it wasn't that she was experiencing a particularly higher number of incidents. It was just that her recording system was different. So we then did a piece of work with the team around making sure that we were consistently recording things. So I talked about early morning and Jess. So other things that came out were noise as a trigger. That generally incidents were much less frequent in the community, which was helpful when staff, for example, were identifying that they were uncomfortable potentially taking her out and about, but actually we were able to use the evidence to say that even when she is unsettled, she's much less likely to exhibit a behaviour described as challenging in the community. And similarly, as I said, we reviewed the hours of support. So we saw that weekends had less incidents and we were delivering different hours during those times. So all of the data, so as well as the behavioural analysis and incident analysis, we also looked at the more qualitative side. So spoke to a number of stakeholders, so multi-agency, so psychiatry, social worker, had team meetings, supervisions. We undertook functional assessment interviews with a number of staff, including historic staff, motivational assessment scales and direct observations. Interestingly, just an interesting point is that once we implemented the interventions, we saw that the function of the behaviours changed. So whereas previously she was displayed, the inferred function of behaviour was tangible items or attention, those were almost eliminated once we implemented changes. We went through a review of her traffic light plan and amended organisationally our behaviour recording systems, shared the learning across the company and continued to review things. So some of the impacts I just thought I would go through. So accomplishment, so that is a skill teaching exercise there in the corner, teaching Rosie how to count money, Roxy how to count money, and she absolutely has got a sense of accomplishment from that, and so that's a direct quote from her, saying that I'm getting good at this, aren't I, Emily? So we've absolutely seen a positive outcome for her. That's a picture of her opening her own front door with her key, which she was very proud of. And she's also set a number of smart targets and outcomes. So things like going out and about. She's purchased cooking items for the house to undertake her baking, redecorated her bedroom, and has a much wider scope of things that she'd like to do. And of course, the all-important thing, so we saw a significant reduction in behaviours described as challenging. I suppose the key thing for me is, no, we're not nearly there. So although Roxy's living a better life, she's not quite there. She's not living her best life. So things that we're looking to do in the future, so a life planning tool, the skills development around money is with the longer term intention of having a voluntary job. We'd like to look at functionally equivalent skills teaching, structured turn taking, compatibility with other people in her home, deliver on her plan, so going out and about. Obviously with COVID-19 that hasn't happened so much, and to, again, because of COVID-19, implementing the regular visits with family. And from an organisational perspective, the things, again, so obviously Roxy is just one of many people, so we're looking to implement system-wide positive behaviour support, also training more team members as train the trainers in positive behaviour support, and obviously sustaining changes across the organisation. And that's it.